According to the National Electrical Code, receptacles installed during rough-in are considered temporary and must be protected by ground fault circuit interrupters until the final inspection. This is to ensure the safety of workers and contractors during the construction phase. The National Electrical Code defines temporary receptacles as those installed during construction and intended for use by temporary lighting, tools, and equipment. These receptacles are typically not protected by arc fault circuit interrupters or ground fault circuit interrupters at this stage. Once the rough-in is complete and the circuits are permanently energized, the outlets become part of the permanent electrical system. At this point, they are no longer considered temporary and are subject to the National Electrical Code requirements for permanent receptacles. This includes the requirement for ground fault circuit interrupter protection in certain locations such as bathrooms, kitchens, garages, and outdoor areas. During the rough wire stage, it is the responsibility of the electrical contractor to install ground fault circuit interrupters on temporary outlets to protect workers and contractors. Once the circuits are permanently energized, the responsibility shifts to the property owner or their representative to ensure that ground fault circuit interrupters are installed where required by the National Electrical Code. National Electrical Code Section 527.6 requires ground fault circuit interrupter protection for temporary receptacles during construction. National Electrical Code Section 527.6b permits the use of portable ground fault circuit interrupter cord sets as an alternative to installing ground fault circuit interrupters at individual receptacles. Based on this information, the inspector is correct in requiring ground fault circuit interrupters on temporary outlets during rough wire. However, once the circuits are permanently energized and the outlets become part of the permanent electrical system, the responsibility for ground fault circuit interrupter protection falls on the property owner or their representative. Let's delve deeper into the specific requirements and implications of the National Electrical Code regarding temporary and permanent wiring during construction. The primary reason for treating receptacles differently during construction versus the final occupancy is safety. Construction sites are inherently more hazardous environments than finished buildings. There is a higher risk of electrical shock due to the presence of water, exposed wiring, and the use of portable tools and equipment. Ground fault circuit interrupters are designed to quickly interrupt the flow of electricity in the event of a ground fault, which can occur when electricity flows through an unintended path, such as a person's body. This rapid interruption can prevent serious injury or death. The National Electrical Code recognizes the increased risk and mandates the use of ground fault circuit interrupter protection for temporary wiring to mitigate these hazards. The definition of temporary receptacles, as outlined in the National Electrical Code, is crucial. These are not simply receptacles that are present during construction. They are specifically those intended for use by temporary lighting, tools, and equipment. This distinction is important because it clarifies that any receptacle intended for permanent use from the outset, even if installed during the rough-in phase, should be treated as a permanent receptacle and wired accordingly. The transition from temporary to permanent status is a key point of contention. The National Electrical Code does not provide a precise moment when this transition occurs. However, the general understanding is that it happens when the circuits are permanently energized and the outlets are integrated into the final electrical system. This typically coincides with the completion of the rough-in phase and the start of the finishing phase. At this point, the receptacles are no longer considered temporary and must meet the National Electrical Code requirements for permanent installations. This includes ground fault circuit interrupter protection in areas such as bathrooms, kitchens, garages, outdoor locations, and any other areas specified by the National Electrical Code. It is essential to understand who bears the responsibility for ensuring ground fault circuit interrupter protection at different stages of construction. During the rough wire stage, the electrical contractor is primarily responsible. They must install ground fault circuit interrupters on temporary outlets to protect workers and contractors. This can be achieved by using ground fault circuit interrupter breakers in the temporary panel or by using portable ground fault circuit interrupter cord sets. Once the circuits are permanently energized, the responsibility shifts to the property owner or their representative. This means that the owner or their designated representative, such as a general contractor or project manager, must ensure that all permanent receptacles are properly wired and protected by ground fault circuit interrupters as required by the National Electrical Code. It is also important to consider the specific requirements of National Electrical Code Section 527.6, which addresses temporary wiring. National Electrical Code Section 527.6 mandates ground fault circuit interrupter protection for all 125 volt, 15, 20, and 30 amp receptacles that are not part of the permanent wiring of the building or structure and that are in use by personnel during construction, remodeling, maintenance, repair, or demolition activities. This requirement applies to both temporary receptacles and any other receptacles that are not yet considered part of the permanent wiring system. National Electrical Code Section 527.6b provides an exception to the requirement for ground fault circuit interrupter protection at each individual receptacle. It allows the use of portable ground fault circuit interrupter cord sets or devices as an alternative. These devices can be plugged into standard receptacles and provide ground fault circuit interrupter protection for any equipment connected to them. This option can be more cost-effective and convenient than installing individual ground fault circuit interrupters at each receptacle, especially in situations where the receptacles are temporary or will be removed after construction. To further clarify the application of ground fault circuit interrupter protection during construction, it is helpful to consider a few specific scenarios. Firstly, imagine a construction site where temporary lighting is needed. The electrical contractor might install a temporary panel with several 120 volts receptacles. These receptacles would be considered temporary and would require ground fault circuit interrupter protection. The contractor could achieve this by installing ground fault circuit interrupter breakers in the temporary panel or by using portable ground fault circuit interrupter cord sets. Secondly, consider a situation where a contractor needs to use a power tool, such as a circular saw. The contractor would need to plug the saw into a receptacle with ground fault circuit interrupter protection. This could be a temporary receptacle with a ground fault circuit interrupter or a standard receptacle with a portable ground fault circuit interrupter cord set. Thirdly, imagine a homeowner remodeling their kitchen. The homeowner might hire an electrician to install new receptacles as part of the remodeling project. During the rough-in phase, these receptacles would be considered temporary and would require ground fault circuit interrupter protection. Once the wiring is complete and the circuits are permanently energized, the receptacles would become part of the permanent electrical system and would need to meet the National Electrical Code requirements for ground fault circuit interrupter protection in kitchens. In summary, the National Electrical Code requires ground fault circuit interrupter protection for temporary receptacles during construction to protect workers and contractors from electrical shock hazards. The responsibility for ensuring ground fault circuit interrupter protection shifts from the electrical contractor to the property owner or their representative once the circuits are permanently energized and the receptacles become part of the permanent electrical system. The National Electrical Code allows the use of portable ground fault circuit interrupter cord sets as an alternative to installing ground fault circuit interrupters at individual receptacles. It is crucial to understand these requirements to ensure a safe and compliant electrical installation. The key takeaway is that safety is paramount during construction, and ground fault circuit interrupters are a critical component of electrical safety. By following the National Electrical Code guidelines and taking the necessary precautions, we can minimize the risk of electrical shock and create a safer working environment for everyone involved. Beyond the specific requirements for ground fault circuit interrupter protection, it is also essential to consider the broader context of electrical safety during construction. This includes proper grounding and bonding, the use of appropriate wiring methods, and adherence to all applicable codes and standards. Grounding and bonding are essential for providing a safe path for fault current to flow back to the source, which helps to trip circuit breakers and prevent electrical shock. Proper wiring methods, such as the use of cable with the appropriate ampacity and insulation rating, are necessary to prevent overheating and electrical fires. Adherence to all applicable codes and standards ensures that the electrical installation meets minimum safety requirements and is properly inspected and approved. In addition to these technical considerations, it is also crucial to promote a culture of safety on construction sites. This includes providing adequate training for workers, conducting regular safety meetings, and enforcing strict safety protocols. Workers should be trained on the proper use of electrical equipment, the hazards of electricity, and the importance of ground fault circuit interrupter protection. Safety meetings should be used to discuss potential hazards and review safety procedures. Strict safety protocols should be enforced to ensure that all workers follow the rules and regulations. By combining technical expertise with a strong commitment to safety, we can create a construction environment where everyone can work safely and productively. This will help to prevent accidents, injuries, and fatalities, and will ultimately contribute to a more successful and sustainable construction industry. In conclusion, the transition from temporary to permanent wiring during construction is a critical point that requires careful attention to detail and a thorough understanding of the National Electrical Code requirements. Ground fault circuit interrupter protection is essential for ensuring the safety of workers and contractors during the construction phase, and the responsibility for providing this protection shifts from the electrical contractor to the property owner or their representative once the circuits are permanently energized. By following the National Electrical Code guidelines and promoting a culture of safety, we can minimize the risk of electrical shock and create a safer working environment for everyone involved. The implementation of ground fault circuit interrupters is not merely a code requirement, it is a fundamental safety measure that protects lives and prevents injuries. Its proper application and understanding are crucial for all electrical professionals and anyone involved in construction or renovation projects. Remember to always consult the latest edition of the National Electrical Code for the most up-to-date requirements and to seek guidance from qualified electrical inspectors or engineers when needed. The electrical safety is a shared responsibility, and by working together, we can create a safer and more reliable electrical infrastructure for our communities. Furthermore, it's important to note that while the National Electrical Code provides a comprehensive framework for electrical safety, local codes and regulations may also apply. These local requirements can vary depending on the jurisdiction and may be more stringent than the National Electrical Code in some cases. Therefore, it is always essential to consult with local authorities and to ensure that the electrical installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations. In addition to ground fault circuit interrupters, arc fault circuit interrupters are another important safety device that is becoming increasingly common in residential electrical systems. Arc fault circuit interrupters are designed to detect electrical arcs, which are a common cause of electrical fires. Arcs can occur when there is a loose connection, damaged wiring, or other electrical faults. Arc fault circuit interrupters can detect these arcs and quickly interrupt the flow of electricity, preventing a fire from starting. While arc fault circuit interrupters are not typically required for temporary wiring during construction, they are often required for permanent wiring in certain areas of the home, such as bedrooms and living rooms. As electrical technology continues to evolve, new safety devices and techniques are constantly being developed. It is important to stay informed about these advancements and to incorporate them into our electrical installations whenever possible. By embracing innovation and prioritizing safety, we can create a more reliable and secure electrical infrastructure for the future. In closing, electrical safety is a complex and multifaceted topic that requires ongoing education and vigilance. By understanding the National Electrical Code requirements, following best practices, and staying informed about new technologies, we can create a safer electrical environment for ourselves, our families, and our communities.